Hi friends, it's Julie. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with a reading check-in video for you guys. I'm going to let you know the books that I have read recently and quickly go over what I'm currently reading. So I haven't filmed one of these in a while, so quite a few books to get through. I'm just going to talk about them in order that I read them. So yeah, let's just get started. So to start things off, the first book that I finished since the last time I talked to you was Beartown by Frederick Bachman, and this book actually made it into my top books of 2018, which I will link to up above if you want to check it out if you haven't already. So I'll just quickly say, obviously it was one of my favorite books, so I loved this. I loved the writing, I loved the characters, I thought the audiobook was fantastic, and yeah, I can't wait to continue on with this series. Then up next I have a fantasy novel, and that is The Black Prism by Brent Weeks. And overall I really enjoyed this. I listened to it on audio and I liked the audio narration. I thought the magic system in this book was really cool. And I'll try and explain it. It's pretty intricate, but it has to do with light, and people can see different colors of light and they can use that light to craft and make things. So some people can use yellow, some people can use blue, green, like different shades of these colors. And some people can only craft with one color, some people can craft with 2 or 3 colors, and then one person known as the prism can use all of the colors. And each color of light has different properties to it, and it was really cool. It took a while to kind of figure it out, but I did really like the way that he wrote in the magic system, because he doesn't just info dump on you. You learn about the magic as the characters do. So in this story, we follow multiple perspectives. One is of the current prism. His name is Gavin. We also follow the perspective of his bastard son, who is this boy named Kip, and who Gavin finds out about at the beginning of this book. So we follow Kip's perspective as well. And then we also follow the perspective of this total badass. Her name is Karis, and she's just total badass woman. I love really strong females in my fantasy books, and Karis is definitely that. She is a part of the Black Guard, which is a guard that protects the prism, and she's known as like the fastest drafter there is. And so I really liked getting some of her perspectives. And overall, like I said, I enjoyed this. I thought the writing was pretty good. It's very straightforward. It reminds me a bit of like Brandon Sanderson in like Mistborn. So I did like that. I thought the story moved very quickly. I was really sucked in. I'd heard that the beginning of this book was slow, but I didn't think it was slow at all. However, my criticism was, and I don't know if it's because I was listening to this on audio and so it's just more apparent, but he always has to describe his females by talking about their breasts. And I don't typically pick up on shit like this. Like, I don't. I just read for enjoyment. But it was just over and over and over again, we had to hear about what her breasts looked like. Were they saggy breasts? Were they big breasts? What their nipples, if their nipples were hard. Just, it happened over and over and over again. And so it got a little annoying, I'm not gonna lie. Also, one of the main characters is overweight, and that is brought up a lot in the book about how overweight he is, and his weight was just, it was just talked about a lot. So I do hope that that's kind of toned down in the next books in this series. Like, hopefully somebody told him to kind of change that up a little bit. I do plan on continuing on with it, but yeah, that was just my criticism of it. Then the next book I want to talk about was my first read of 2019, and it was such a great way to start the year. And that was My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. And I loved this. This was my first Grady Hendrix book, and I'm so glad I finally picked it up. I buddy read this with April from Getting Huggo With It, and we both just really enjoyed this. So this is a story about 2 friends, Abby and Gretchen, and they meet in like 4th grade. And this book is taking place in 1988, and the girls are, I believe, like sophomores in high school now. And one night they decide to take some LSD with a few other friends, and while they're waiting for it to kick in, they decide to go skinny dipping. And then Gretchen gets into an accident outside, and she ends up being lost in the woods all night long. They can't find her. And the next morning, Abby finds her in the woods, and Gretchen is just acting very strange. And over the next few weeks and months, that strangeness just intensifies, and her personality just completely changes. She's nothing like herself. She starts doing really terrible things. And then, of course, like the title implies, an exorcism takes place. And yeah, overall, I loved this. I loved that at the heart of the story, it was really about these 2 girls and their friendship. And it was filled with so much like nostalgia. I was born in 1988, so I'm more of like a child of the 90s, but my sister is definitely an 80s child, and there were just so many things that were brought up that I'm like, oh, I remember that, and all those memories. I loved how each chapter was titled with a different song title. I thought that was really fun, and just his writing in general was just so good. I think this would be a great starting point for somebody who's looking to get into the horror genre. Just because it's not overly scary. There was a few creepy moments, but there was never a time where like I was afraid to turn out the lights or something like that. So I think it'd be a great starting place for somebody looking to get into the genre, and yeah, I just can't wait to read more of his books. Then the next book I finished was a graphic novel called A Bingo Love, and I can't remember the author's name. I'm sorry. I will put in a picture over here and link to it down below, but this was really cute. I read this in one evening. It made me cry. It was about these two women who meet when they are teenagers and they fall in love, and their families find out about it and split them apart. They don't want them to be together. And they both go on to get married to men and have children, and then they end up coming together later in life and just rekindling that love, and they get to spend the rest of their days together, and it was just really sweet. There were a few times where I found the dialogue a little jarring, but overall I really enjoyed it, and I'm glad I read it. Then next is my first unpopular opinion of the year, and that was Where the Crawdads Sing by Delilah Owens. This is probably going to come as a big surprise because this book is very, very well loved, especially on Bookstagram, on Goodreads. It has amazing reviews, but this book just didn't work for me. I don't know if it's because I had hyped it up so much in my head, but this is a coming-of-age story about this girl growing up in this marsh, and her father's abusive. The rest of her brothers and sisters and her mother have just left her here with her dad, and eventually her dad leaves her too, and so she just has to figure out how to survive on her own, has to figure out how to get food. And she loves this marsh that she lives in, so she studies the insects and the birds and all those things. And as she grows up, she ends up meeting these two men, and there's a mystery component in this book, and yeah, overall this just didn't work for me. I didn't really enjoy the writing. I thought it was a little too much sometimes. It was very flowery, and I really like flowery writing, or maybe flowery isn't the word for this writing. I don't know. I couldn't connect with it. I couldn't connect with the characters. I found the story very predictable. Like as soon as we were introduced to one of these guys, I knew exactly what was going to happen. I had the mystery pretty much figured out. I felt that the story dragged in parts, and Delilah Owens, who wrote this book, she has like a biology background, and so she spent a lot of times talking about the insects and the birds and their mating things and just different parts of, you know, just about them. And I found that kind of boring. Yeah, this book just did not work for me, but I do know that I'm in the minority here. So I will leave a link to the book on Goodreads down below so you can read some reviews on it, because I don't want to tell you not to read it because most people love this book. It just didn't work for me. It just didn't work for me. Then the next two books I want to talk about are ones I listened to on audio. The first one was The Broken Girls by Simone St. James. And I really enjoyed this. I thought the audiobook was done really well. So this is a mystery that has dual timelines, which I love dual timelines in my books, but I feel like I haven't read a story with them in quite a long time, or maybe I just can't remember if I have. So this book is set around this place called Idlewild Hall, which was this boarding school for troubled girls. And one of the timelines that we're following was set in the 1950s, and it's following 4 girls that are in Idlewild Hall, and there's a mystery that happens with them, which I don't want to tell you because I didn't know about it when I picked up the book, and I liked that I went into the book pretty blindly. So we're following these 4 girls that are in the boarding school, and then we're also following a timeline set in 2014 where we're following this journalist. I can't remember her name, but her sister was murdered like about 10-15 years prior to this taking place, and her body was found on the grounds of Idlewild Hall. And Idlewild Hall had been shut down for a very long time, but her sister's body was found there. And the man who killed her sister is in jail, like he's behind bars, but she's still convinced that there's something else, like something else happened when her sister was murdered. And so we're following these 2 timelines, and they end up interweaving pretty well. And yeah, I just really enjoyed this. I didn't have the mystery completely figured out. I loved the ghost. There is like a ghost story element to this book, but that isn't the big mystery, which I really like, because you guys know I'm not super into like supernatural thrillers or supernatural horror, but I did like that little component into the story. And yeah, I really enjoyed this. I would read more of her books. Then the other audiobook I listened to was the one by John Mars, and this book was really fun. I really enjoyed the audiobook because it had a full cast, which was nice because you're following multiple perspectives in this book. But this honestly read like an episode of Black Mirror, and I love Black Mirror. So this book has to do with this technology called Match Your DNA. And so people can take a swab of their DNA and send it into this database, and they are matched with their perfect match, like the person who is perfect for them. And like I said, we're following different perspectives. So each person is coming at this from like, you know, they have a different background. So one is this couple who is engaged, and they decide they're gonna see if they are matches before they get married, even though they're in a happy relationship. We're also following the perspective of like a single woman, and we're following the perspective of this other woman whose husband has left her for his match because they had already been married before this technology came out. So it's very thought-provoking. Like, I kept thinking, would I want to do this? No, I wouldn't want to do this. I'm in a very happy marriage, but for somebody who wasn't in a happy marriage, like, I could see people wanting to do this. Or if you were single, you know, it was just very thought-provoking, like an episode of Black Mirror is. And one of the perspectives is a serial killer, and yeah, it was really fun. It moved very quickly. I wanted to keep listening to it. My only criticism of it was I think that a few of the storylines were a little far-fetched, like they were a little hard to believe, but I don't know, it was fun. I would recommend it. Then the last book I want to talk about is Scythe by Neil Shusterman, and this is a very popular YA sci-fi dystopian series here on BookTube, and I can understand why after reading this first book. It was really fun. It moved very quickly. I couldn't put this book down. Like, I read it in 2 days, and it's 430 pages, but you know, YA you can just really fly through. So like I said, this is a sci-fi dystopian novel, and it's set in the future where our cloud, you know, where all of our information is, has been given artificial intelligence, and it has solved all of the world's problems. So there's no more hunger, there's no more poverty, there's no more disease, so people aren't dying. And so this group of people have been put in place, and they are called scythes, and it's their job to control the population. So they have to kill a certain amount of people every year, and we're following 2 perspectives in this book, a boy and a girl, and they are training to become a scythe. And like I said, this book just moved so quickly. I couldn't put it down. I really enjoyed how there wasn't any annoying YA tropes in this book, because you guys know I hate like insta-love and stuff like that, and that was not in here. I also really liked how Neil Shusterman wasn't afraid to add some really dark themes to this book. And I've read another book by him actually called, I think it's called Unwound, and it was also very dark. And I like that about his stories. That was why I picked this up. But do know that it is pretty dark at times. I mean, children are being murdered, so do know that going into it. But I really enjoyed this. I can't wait to pick up the next book in this series. I will say my one big criticism of it was the writing was just so simplistic. But I don't really feel like that can be a criticism because it is a YA novel. And, you know, I'm not the target audience for this book, but I do wish it would have been like an adult series, just so I could have had just a little bit more meat to it, you know. But overall, like I said, I still really enjoyed it, and I can't wait to continue on with the series. I've already requested the next book at the library. So those are all the books that I've read recently, and right now I'm currently rereading The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson, and I'm buddy reading this with Katie, and I am loving this so much. I haven't read this book in years, and it just feels so good to be back with these characters. I love it. There was quite a few things that I had forgotten, so it's been really great. And then up next, I plan on picking up The Last Kingdom by Bernard Cornwell, which is a historical fiction novel about Vikings, and this is actually a show on Netflix, and my husband and I became completely obsessed with it. We've watched all the episodes that are on Netflix so far, and when I found out that this was a book series, like, I got so excited, and I cannot wait to start this book. So that is definitely going to be my next read. And then I also plan on joining in on the Ladies of Horror Fiction read along that is going on through the month of February. Alex from Hey Little Thrifter is helping host that, and I will leave a link to her channel announcement for that down below, so you can check it out and join us in reading some horror novels written by females this month. I'm really excited. I need some more horror in my life. I haven't been reading a lot of it recently, so I'm really excited for this readathon. I haven't finalized my TBR yet, or else I would let you guys know what I'm reading, but I'll just kind of keep you posted as I go. But yeah, I think that's it for the day. Please leave me a comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them, or if you've read anything great recently that you think I should know about or you think that I would like. But yeah, I think that's it, and I will see you all again very soon. Happy reading. Bye.